Euroguidance is a network that supports, advises schools, labor market institutions, and builds a culture of a conscious choice of your path in the labor market. And Skills Poland is an event that shows a huge potential that is in hands-on experience and collaboration with employers. It's here in Gdańsk you can see that skills are the currency of the future. So in order to tap into that potential, we need stable partnerships between schools and businesses with clear rules of collaboration and the possibility to quickly respond to the needs of specific industries. We need an extended careers advice system with students, parents and children involved. We need flexible paths to create and modified training lines, and also the format of teaching experiment. You need support for teachers, especially in the area of industrial technologies and digital change. We need better communication of values that are in vocational education and training, based on examples and real benefits. Europass, Euroguidance and Mobility Europlus together allow students to gain hands-on experience, to grow in an international environment and to use their skills across regions. This is an open and state-of-the-art system that is much, much better now integrated with the European economy, and it is getting better integrated. Today's motto, the motto of our forum, is more than just a catchphrase. It's a place to talk and be responsible together for the future workers, for the competitiveness of the economy, and for young people, so that they choose their job not at random, their profession not at random, but because they are convinced and they are certain about their stable, cohesive and wealthy future. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us the overview of all those issues that are going to be addressed during our meeting. The fifth Vocational Education Forum is a room to talk for experts mainly. And now the first guest, Dr. Renata Minkowska, Team Europe Direct, University of Warsaw, with her lecture on Europe of skills, from learning to the labor market. The professor is with us online, but if you have any questions, there is also a brief session of Q&A for you. If you have any questions, concerns, there will be room for that. You will have this opportunity to ask her. Ma'am, are you here? Welcome. Thank you. We are very happy that you are here with us, that you're our guest, and over to you. Good morning. I hope you can hear me and see me and that everything's working, right? I really hope so. I don't have any feedback, but hopefully things are working. Okay, then. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this event for activating the public debate in such important issues as vocational education and training, but also for the courage to invite me as a keynote speaker, because I come from the academia, especially from the part that deals with general education, because most courses in my department are general courses. I don't deal with vocational education, but I value courageous people. And that is you who have invited me. So I'd like to show you that vocational education and training needs to be talked about with a certain distance and in a broader perspective than just that related to the labor market or education. And because I'm an expert of Team Europe Direct and I've been dealing with EU forever, I'm going to try to look at vocational education from the perspective of what regulating it on the European level gives us in today's world that is changing so dynamically, because European regulations are trying to respond to the challenges that are coming up. In terms of content, I'm not going to address some processes that are important from the EU's point of view. In economy, for example, so mismatch between the job offer to the workers. In 2010, there was a Nobel Prize granted on that, so please refer to the 3 Nobel Prize winners, I'm going to focus on what I'm familiar with. The EU, certain regulatory paradigms, something that can refer to as philosophy. So the polity in the political sciences and sectoral policies of the EU. So that's what we refer to as policies. But I'll leave other things on the side. That would be like electoral fighting, that's politics, as opposed to policies. But please don't forget that populists in Europe are always active. They want to undermine the European project. Luckily, they are not succeeding in vocational education. But we as citizens have to be vigilant because they are important projects. They allow us to respond to the challenges of the future, and we need the EU to be able to make them happen. The EU is the best place absolutely to live in the whole world, mainly because this is an area where the well-being of the citizens counts perhaps more than anywhere else, and I'm going to refer to that in my considerations today. In various perspectives, macro scale, micro scale, we as citizens, we as people who are learning, studying, we as workers, employees, and those who are ready to start working. Because young people today are those who are not yet in vocational education. They are maybe preparing for a job that is not even there yet. So that is the thesis of my present speech. The EU is the absolutely best world to live, to learn, to excel, to become ready to work. And we sometimes forget, and research shows it, that it's also a very good place to be happy. To be happy today, and also in the sense that we will be less worried about tomorrow than other places in the world. I remember that when the EU was referred to as this old entity with those millstones moving so slowly, and I think this kind of thinking about the EU is now a thing of the past. But, we have this barrel to fill. And first, before that, let's start with a bitter pill. According to the World Economic Forum, even 60% of primary school students today will work in jobs that do not exist yet. Although these professions are not there yet, but young people have dreams even now. Inspiring Girls Poland has a report which shows that the dreams of young people have gone through a digital revolution. Most teenagers want to become influencers, TikTokers, YouTubers, and please note, as opposed to what we might be guessing, only 10% of those people are really interested deeply in the STEM industries, because it might seem that engineering, ICT, mathematics would be something that young people would really like to pursue. But, that there are parents to follow and sports personalities, but 20% of young people say that they do nothing in terms of projects with their parents. So even if they say that they are copying their parents, in fact, they would rather copy the models off the internet. Of course, the young people who are thinking of more traditional jobs, psychology, therapy for girls and boys, special services, cybersecurity. In the EU, these trends are a little bit different than in Poland. Poland is not a representative example for that, but as compared to the EU average or the diversity geographically in the EU, well, definitely there's less drive towards being an influencer here. And family in the EU plays a less important role. Young people will talk about a job as a value, friends as a value, and friendship as a whole. And they speak much more frequently that corporations are not so bad, So they would like to work in corporations, large corporate entities, and the role of money is less important in Germany. In Poland, maybe it is significant, but as an incentive to work. But in France, for example, or the European South, where the money is an important factor, obviously, to become active in the labor market or to reskill, but this is still less than in Germany or Poland. Of course, now, dreaming of being an influencer or work-life balance, all those dreams, or cherishing and tending to family values, well, these people won't be able to make all those dreams happen. We probably guess that. And that's because their plans will be undermined by low demographics, having to work to support the elderly, and a dynamically changing lifestyle, which is not conducive to setting up a family. The young people just stay online. That's being lonely online oftentimes. Very superficial relationships rather than real-world relationships. And there's also another issue. We need to talk about it. So a mismatch between the expectations of boys and girls. Girls are much better educated. That goes for the whole EU, especially visible in Poland. And boys would rather go to vocational education. It's important for our industry, for our sector, because we need vocational education to be appreciated. Because it will match boys and girls better, so to match those expectations between the two better. And that is important for demographics, even if we don't immediately associate it immediately with vocational education. That's better for demographics, for interpersonal relationships, and the research shows that boys tend to feel pushed to the sidelines by girls. They are more prone to the influence of radically misogynistic politicians or celebrities. It's very important. We need to work on that as a society, so that education based on vocational preparation, hands-on experience, we need to show that this is good, that there is a value, a social value in that. And at the same time, you might say that it's not so bad with our young people. They dream of being an influencer, but they do something to achieve that. 75% of young people start working at 15 or 16 years of age, and it's not just working, picking some vegetables or fruit. Oh, they will also work as online content creators, as tutors. They sell handcraft. So practical skills. So you might say, there's no bitter pill here. This is good news only. But the problem is that there's a significant disparity and diversity in terms of that in the EU. So we have a large number of young people learning to get a job, a profession in countries such as the Netherlands. There are many of them, but there are much fewer of them in the south of Europe. And at the same time, we have about 11% of young people who belong to the group who are not in training and not in education. They are not looking for a job. In the Netherlands, it's 5%. In Romania, it's about 20% for 2025. So this is an issue. We also have about 12% young people aged 15 to 29 who do not live in the country where they were born. So there is a significant mobility in the EU of those young people as well, not just those who choose a place to work for good. So the whole bitterness of the situation is that these differences in the EU is difficult to manage. It's difficult to build a program that will match the expectations of all the member states. And I'm talking about young people mainly. I focus less on the matter of women who have to drop out of the labor market because of their maternity or have to take care of their parents. And they also need to be taken care of in terms of their job, reskilling, consolidating, strengthening their skills that would come in useful in a new role that they might take up after the break that they take to take care of children. But I'd like to focus mainly on the young people, because what EU does today, well, it will be better visible in several years rather than several weeks. So that needs to be remembered too.
There was some better story, and now even bitter, more bitter things, because we have got certain issues. The report on the European level, it was discussed in the public. What challenges do you face on the European level? Not only we against Europe or against the world, but it's also important for the labor market itself. Because according to reports, there were many of them, let me try to some systematize because they draw similar conclusions. Our productivity is decreasing, labor costs are increasing. Among this, first, because cheap fuel from Russia is no longer delivered, so it's one of the costs of production. But we, as Europeans, must also understand that certain cost is also the cost of investment in our safety. We are constantly dealing with fierce competition, very often unfair competition from the United States and from China. For instance, the Chinese to develop their IE, they just stole materials from European fields. Of course, that was a drop of bitter thing in the whole sweetness, because we are not stealing, but, well, what does it mean? It means we are less competitive. Our competitive level makes us drop against the world. And we have to balance our expenditure for safety, for ecological transformation, for digital transformation, for health issues. And all of these we must balance against and coordinate with the need for increased investment with R&D development. Also, please note in the context of cyber safety, cyber security. Please note how many cyber attacks do we have from the Eastern as well as American sides. We must deal also with good education. This is our field. But we are constantly hearing about challenges. And all of these reports say that we must reinforce, coordinate European actions, cooperate better within the European Union, and be more freer for each country to delegate their costs, their money to certain specific tasks. But on the other hand, being able to invest on the domestic market, be able to better coordinate it with European Union. So instead, sometimes we'll have to choose between ad hoc activities, but which are politically profitable. We must be able, as a whole, to persuade European countries to follow the issue, to regulate. Please note that we are now facing the big surge of anti-regulative voices, because many people claim they were over-regulated. Our European market is over-regulated. But if we drop regulations, we cease to coordinate. You cannot coordinate something which is unfeasible, untouchable, intangible. We must, and the European Union must concentrate on better coordination in research, on development, on digital development, and also managing with the laborers, with employees who might not be only European employees, but also from other markets. We need hands for labor. We need to train people who are going to work, which are needed for the profit of the European Union. Additionally, we must also go down to the micro level, because European Union must also support the laborers themselves to help them transform and gain new skills to be better adjusted for the labor market. So considering all these big warnings, bitter things, as my son says, when he is trying to play ethics, he usually starts, "Mother, good news is." So, ladies and gentlemen, good news is that the European Union really does a lot to fulfill all the postulates of both of the reports I've mentioned. And now, good things. Let me begin with the book Digital Empires, Angren's report, and she describes three paradigms on which three regions of the world are based, among them European Union. And the paradigms deal with digital world, but also labor markets. European Union, which faces and prioritized protection of citizens. And please note that the writer of the book is a Macaron girl, where business is the top value, but it's not all of them. And then the third body is China, which uses technology just to manage and control their citizen. And of course, it's followed by technological and other kind of development. So there are three digital empires who try to export their regulations, at least they try. Of course, question is, which of the three paradigms would you choose? And the answer is, since we happen to live in the European Union, so we can draw a conclusion that we happily live in the best of the possible of these three paradigms, which of course is very often full of disadvantages when we try to regulate the knowledge as goods, as capital, which can be sold. In our world, since our regulations will be able to make less money on it, not such a luxury, beautiful business. But if we consider that European Union governs the world, the author of the book shows data that the European Union really influences the world in terms of legislation and regulations, even more than our political value might suggest, especially when we look at the European-Russian talks about peace in Ukraine. Seemingly, these talks omit European Union, but it's only on the surface, because our role is also important, because our power is more than we can imagine. So thanks to the market, which we have, there's 4 million people. So for any other part of the world, any other of the empires, it is a really interesting bit to swallow. But our power lies in our potential as a competitor. We can still show that we are a big market which needs to be taken into account. And we as citizens are important. So the European Union might be more effective and use its power more effectively. Of course, we can complain over regulations, too much legislation, which harnesses, which limits the free development of businesses. Yes, indeed. This approach also can influence even the vocational training, because we must protect personal data, observe certain standards which are alien to any other world. They increase the cost. But on the other hand, let's have a look. The whole market of vocational training education is one of the pillars of European competitiveness. This is shown by reports, and it is revealed in the needs. And the European Union reinforces its efforts towards the development to meet these challenges of competitiveness, to ensure that Europe has such labor force capable of managing various challenges, various fields of activity. And please note that even if we seem not to have any advantages over competition, we can always try to minimize it. So we can always help big companies to implement European standards elsewhere in the world, for instance, force China to follow our standards. And certainly, our efforts must serve to support the challenges and our coping with the challenges, because European Union supports the development of European labor force, but especially in the upskilling, labor skilling, in digital area, in green area. Whenever European Union tries to meet global challenges, additionally, there is investment into small and micro companies to encourage these small businesses to send their employees for trainings. And what is important, to increase the mobility of workers in the European Union, make it more natural to be on the move. And what is important, to increase the systems, not bits, but systems of vocational education and training. When Denmark was the president during the Copenhagen session, strategy for 2025-2030, that was the meeting in the largest Legoland in Europe. It was a good place, because we are also talking about the issues where European Union can show advantage over the competition. For instance, in the medical field, when we export even to the US and other countries, we export drugs, medicines, for instance, for diabetes or obesity. This is our advantage. But there is also controversies related to activities of such firms which produce products demanded in the world. But the European Union tries to regulate it and keep hand on the pulse to ensure that all this regulated but doesn't escape, the potential we have wouldn't be lost. For instance, also in Germany, which can be a model of the partnership with schools and companies and businesses, which means better education for labor market. I know how long such processes take, and I know, on the other hand, the European Union offers some tools to manage these issues, to develop programs following the directions demanded by the labor market, and helping us to realize the goals outlined in the reports I mentioned. We must also concentrate on the acceptance of qualifications, developing of digital competence, green competence, and these should be present everywhere in the EU whenever school is located, or Horizon, or just transformation will be financially supporting people's pursuers for the goals outlined by the reports of which European Union is aware. There is also the issue of connection between public administration, businesses and NGOs, and the various partnerships among these. And European is investing in aviation, healthcare. These are the fields financed by the European Union, along with the field of digital development. And we try to implement all these issues into educational programs. And such programs permit the market to quickly find well-skilled laborers in terms of labor skills and training. And when big companies are searching for the laborers, is very helpful. Please remember that European is more than 1.5 million euro, and hundreds of thousands of employees, possible employees, and we need some success stories. I've got certain examples to show you that these activities of European Union of Skills, for instance, battery and microelectronics, Northvolt, Carger, Flair, and car producers, they use European educational training to, please note, hundreds of thousands of people working in these fields of industry. So now we can use Asian, you don't have to use Asian batteries, we can produce our own. So we developed mega factories in this field, employing well-trained employees. Please, these are in Sweden, Spain and Portugal. They were famous as countries of the highest unemployment rate in the European Union, thanks to the connection between labor and training and education. We managed to decrease, to lower the unemployment level, especially among young people, thanks to the requalification, retraining, shifting people from one field, say hoteliers, into logistics and so on. So Spanish and Portuguese investment in new model of education, developing more flexibility, helps to reduce unemployment. And micro-training also permitted Google, Cisco, to train employees who are employed in here. For instance, in Ireland and in Finland, we've got some model examples of cooperation between educational and training sector, public administration. And the problem is for now here in Poland to transplant it onto the Polish market, because not all of the countries have the same structure, corporate structure as Finland and Ireland, but that's a separate issue. Centers for vocational and training in Spain, in Burgos or in Lithuania, when we have factories in the fields of robotics, mechatronics, green technologies. There is a lot of happening going on in the field at the moment, and all of this thanks to the European money. One more good, sweet example to make you realize that we are talking about a fantastic place on the earth and activities which are really promising to bring a lot of good effects. European Union EU tries to build welfare, to take care of the welfare of their citizens. That's the only body which is concentrated on the welfare of their citizens, of their people. For instance, a member country is not very eager to follow this pattern of taking care of their citizens, but it's the European Union which forces this country to take care of their citizens, their welfare and development and education. And being developed, well-trained, brings happiness. So flexibility in changing your professional skills brings happiness, and where many citizens feel happy when they learned the skills, the flexibility. 11 out of 13 countries in which the index of happiness is the highest is the European countries. 11 out of 13 all over the world. And it's also combined with such issues as protection of young people entering the labor market, flexibility in changing their skills. Certainly, we can say there are many challenges that European Union doesn't always follow individual member countries in their innovations. Sometimes, for instance, euro area is still not all over Europe. Some member countries do not have the currency, so it's more difficult to develop such innovations because some member states are not so eager to implement. And the wishes of Ambassador Jan Truszczyński, and he commented that the administration and the labor management are not very eager to cooperate and transfer their achievements to other member countries. So there is a lot of difficulties, changes, bitter issues which need to be changed, but the European Union tries to keep pace and keeps pace with the global market, for instance, in the field in artificial intelligence. And if we have IA in the European, it will be in the fields of rather general education, not people who are specialists in their vocation. Another good news is that the research says that young people realize the threat of IA and they are prepared. They are prepared to refashion their training, improve their qualifications, improve their skills. There is a research showing that European Union is better prepared than other parts of the world as in terms of facing IA revolution. We think that it's the Americans or the Chinese who are well prepared. But, well, of course, they do a lot, but it was clearly indicated that was from the Georgia University, and the research showed that it is the Europe which is best prepared all over the world, best prepared to face IE challenges. So please try to think what's going on in our country, what's going on in European Union in terms of vocational education and training, and how the European answers addresses the needs of this training. Paradoxically, the optimism is also enhanced by the fact that all the challenges of II are related to such issues like our approach to safety and defense industry. And this means that many of new people will find employment in these sectors. So such people will both work for safety, but also will be employees on our domestic market. One thing, finishing, we have recently observed that well-educated specialists leave the US and China towards Europe, and I hope this trend will still continue, which is very good for us. If there are any questions, you are welcome. Thank you very much, dear Professor.
Przypomnę, doktor habilitowana Renata Mieńkowska.
Renata Mieńkowska, PhD from the University of Warsaw, is our guest. Do you have any questions, perhaps, or something that you would like to get to know more about? The keynote speech was very inspirational, and there are many things addressed. Is there some movement in the room? Maybe someone would pick up their courage. Someone needs to start first. So is everything so clear then? And so very optimistically put, that you've been inspired only.
Tych wątków było tak dużo, że trzeba je najpierw chyba samemu przerobić.
I think that we need to process all that for ourselves. And I think that you will have a lot of discussions that later on, and the keynote speech is to inspire you, and then you are going to have those detailed panels where you will have more discussions. Maybe that it will cause some intellectual stir in you.
Brawa jeszcze raz.
And thank you once again, ma'am, and once again, please put your hands together for our keynote speaker.
A teraz
And now,
profesor
Piotr Mikiewicz, Lower Silesia University, Wrocław. He's going to persuade us that every education is vocational. Over to you, sir.
Do tego? Raz, słychać.
This one? Okay, can you hear me?
A tu widzę, dobrze.
Right then.
Dzień dobry, witam Państwa.
Hi everyone, a very warm welcome.
Organizatorzy mi tutaj napisali,
The organizers have told me
motywacyjny.
that this is a
Więc mam Państwa
motivational speech, so I need to motivate you. Yes, we lost yesterday a football game, and
mamy zgodę z Lechią.
yeah, Lechia is just around the corner from here, Lechia Football Club, and we are friends with them. So we might say, actually chant like football fans, vocational education Erasmus. That's what we could do. That's a path to follow. So, jokes aside, so I decided to motivate you to a reflection about vocational education. And a lot has been said today already, very important things, important information. And I got to ask, where are those slimming pills? Because they definitely come in handy. Right.
No, ale skoro są to tak.
But if they are there,
Ważne informacje oczywiście.
they can be used. So important information.
Profesor bardzo wiele rzeczy ciekawych.
Ma'am, professor said very many important things. And at the beginning she said she doesn't deal with vocational education. And my thesis is, yes, you are addressing it. You are handling it. It's just that you don't know about it, or you are not fully aware of it. And some slogans, some words that lead us to a conclusion why every education in the contemporary world, and in fact it has always been so in classical sociology of social movement, well, it says how our education affects our movement when we are adults, from when we start a family and when we are adults. So even what I do in my primary school affects how I place in my professional life. So every stage has a professional impact. But there's an extra dimension here. So how do we do this? Okay, every education is vocational. Every kind of education is vocational. So thinking about this, right? So some slogans that are self-evident, and we talk about them a lot. We all talk about globalization. And today the director and the professor, they talked about this, and the EU is an example of globalization, about what's happening. But why do we need to repeat those slogans? Because they are important, they significantly affect our lives. We know them from textbooks, from documents, and they stop being meaningful anymore because they are so worn out. But we do experience them in crisis. When the pandemic broke out, you know that what globalization is. No sunflower seed oil because all the sunflowers are in one country, grow in one country. In Spain, there are no tomatoes because they're grown in Ukraine. And oil is grown in Europe. Even in Africa, there's hunger because there's war in Ukraine. That's globalization. That's the result of globalization. Because globalization is about this.
przemieszczamy się w Unii
We
Europejskiej.
move around in the EU, all those words that we use,
Transferowalności kompetencji.
transferability of skills, employability, etc. That's related. But we are all affected, and the development of the technologies of the future, that's also self-evident.
Trzeba sobie o tym przypominać.
But we need to reiterate that, and we touch upon that. 3 years ago, we didn't have ChatGPT. And that is true, please remember. And now it is there. On a side note, I just finished evaluating grants for 2030 Horizon. There is a call for digitization and educational change. And I wanted to check how AI and digitization influences educational processes. So in 3 years, those 3 people who won, they would say 3 years ago there was no ChatGPT. Please note how it works. And like we heard from the professor, the EU gives us tools. Yes, true, but also you can see that they are not catching up. It's not to criticize Horizon. This is how long projects take, and research processes as well. It takes time to deliver good projects, and very good projects were submitted. I can't tell you more because I'm under the oath of secrecy. And even today I was evaluating the final winner. But this goes to show the differences of the rhythms where we operate, how we operate. I heard on the radio, I think the day before yesterday, in Poland or in Wrocław, somewhere else, there will be a factory of AI. And I really don't know what that means, how there can be a factory of AI, but this is a digital, technological revolution that affects us all. The climate and energy crisis, the blue competences and green competences, and demographic transformation in Lower Silesia. 50% less people were born than 5 years ago. And there's a municipality in Lubuskie region where no one was born over several weeks. So we're going to shrink by half very soon. And that's important because those people who are born today will be at university in several years, in 20 years, and so there will be half as many students than now, and there will be half as many people born in Poland who are going to enter the labor market. So the technological change might actually be a solution for us in Poland. So there's a demographic crisis out there. Depopulation, migration, all those maps from Statistics Poland, you will see how settlement changes. Warsaw, Krakow, the Tri-City area, Wrocław area, they are being filled with people, and interior is depopulated, regardless of the region in Poland. And that's important because in the Kłodzko, in Lower Silesia, in Kłodzko there is a protest from parents that schools are being closed. A school is being closed, with school with great results, but it needs to be closed, no students. So you need to think intra-regionally. You need to think about the vocational education network here. And speaking of those trends, there's something that is the least considered: individualization. Yes, the Western world is individualized as opposed to maybe China, that is collective, and we have individualization. What does it mean? It means that every single one of us, me, you, and you, every person is an individual and individually responsible for what they do, for how they organize their lives. So you learn, you get motivated. If you are not yourself, if you are in a group and you don't feel yourself, something wrong with you. You are 7 years in a single company, something wrong with you, right? That's the viewpoint. So it's important here that we actually realize our identity.
są kwestią wyboru.
So even biological gender considerations are a matter of choice.
Kulturowej, w której
We are in this cultural phase where individual freedom matters. I'm not criticizing that. It's just the way it is. And this individual freedom translates onto various things. Be yourself above anything else. And that's a task that we in our culture, in the EU, but elsewhere as well in the West, we need to be individuals. And we need to think about our well-being. We need to be individually responsible for our destiny. And that affects everything that we talk about in education and the job market. The oldest problem in the world. So the relationship between education and the labor market. Something that we believe is obvious is that education is a function of the labor market. There's public school, vocational education, in order to prepare people for jobs that are available in the labor market. So something's needed in the market, you go ahead and give us the workers. But that's obviously not true. Please look at what schools do. Schools were invented to do three things, in fact, altogether, and that's impossible. There are no pictures here about that, but I'll just let you know, and you can read it in my book. I recommend it. Will schooling ever change? Freely available. So schools are there in order to prepare people for work, yes, but on top of that, as importantly, schools are there to prepare citizens to be able to live in a state of law, where there are laws. And it's also a space to realize individual interests of families and each and every one of us. So schools are a function of three ideas. They serve three masters: the state. There's a discussion about educational reform, right? The state needs something. Should religion be there or not? Should history be there or not as a subject? Yeah, the economy, right? Do we teach entrepreneurship or not? So that's another master. And they're also there so that my son goes to the university that will be good for him, so that he makes more money than you do, right? Or maybe just as much. Okay? At least just as much, but not less, right? That's what I'd prefer. I would rather he made as much money at least as me, and I make quite good money. And every parent, especially middle class and upper classes, that's what they think about. Another digression here. These pictures show you what's going on. My son is in the 8th grade, 14 years old. Very important choices ahead of him, job-wise. I'm in a parent-teacher conference, the first days of grade 8, everyone crammed into a small room, and okay, we are going to be told how to choose the high school. And the teacher says, okay, that's the system, these are the scores, and the parents are listening, and then suddenly they all panicked. Okay, so we have to analyze that and, know things. But you can have the best grades on your exam, but never get into a school because you will not apply to the right schools in Wrocław. There are students who have great grades but never got into a school because they applied to wrong schools. So now it's a race. Parents race against each other. And the question to the head teacher: is the school analyzing how well you allocated your students to high schools? And before that, also very important, there's an ambivalence in the system. Don't give our students too heavy tasks. They have to have comfortable education. But in just a moment, students start racing against each other with tutoring, etc., courses that prepare for exams, etc. So, there's a world of ambivalence, dilemmas, entanglement. And that's why I told you about the three masters for education, because this means that school is never good
Zawsze
enough.
jakoś nie tak.
There's always something wrong.
Przegina w stronę gospodarki.
Either
Albo w
it
stronę
goes too much towards the state
albo ze strony
or the
gospodarki.
economy or individualism.
Albo indywidualistyczną, albo ze strony indywidualistycznej.
And so there's always something
Ciągle się
lacking.
szkołę. Dlatego
And we
szkoła
always keep
taka
arguing
jest, jaka
about
jest
school.
od ponad 100 lat.
And school has been like that for over 100 years, like that, because it's more or less
Podmiotów.
okay from the point of view of those three entities. And that's why what I write about in my book, why things got back to normal after COVID.
Edukacyjną.
We expected differences because of technology. Please imagine 700,000 students in Poland trained within a month to use Teams and other tools.
No.
Right, it happened in 3 days, right?
Wcześniej
If I said that half a year ago, everyone would start complaining. They would say, oh no, I'll never go to training. But then COVID came and it suddenly became possible.
oczywiście
We
socjologowie
did some studies, sociologists, teachers, etc., in professional journals, and the results, schools will never be the same again.
dotknęliśmy
We experienced that, we learned, we are going to restructure the whole educational culture. And then 3 months after the pandemic, we go back to normal, and everything is exactly the same as before.
śladu nie ma po
Not even a trace of the technological change in the educational thinking.
szkoły.
Another example from my school, we did interviews during COVID. There was the homeroom teacher of my son, right? He had meetings with parents online, right? And then after COVID, a parent-teacher conference. Why do we have to come here? There are four parents coming out of 30. Why don't we connect on Teams? And the homeroom teacher says,
Nawyki w systemie.
never. This is never going to happen. So you can see how permanent those
A technologia jest
changes are. And that goes for vocational education as well. But technology is pouring in all kinds of schooling. Apologies for the digression,
to wszystko jest na temat.
but it's all about our topic.
Jak się mówi o relacji edukacji
Speaking of the relationship between education and the labor market, right, is there a light here?
nie świeci się.
No, there isn't. This one doesn't have a light.
Nie, dobra, to nie.
This pointer doesn't have a light.
Teraz patrzę na
Now I'm looking at the adaptation, adjustment problem, or mismatch problem.
Takim dobitnym elementem jest
One of the most pressing matter is to have the right match.
o dopasowaniu, tak?
So the match between education and the labor market. Classically,
No,
demand and supply, to match the two.
diagnozowania
I myself came up with a system to diagnose industry-specific jobs.
które się
You know those announcements from the Ministry of Education in February, what jobs are available, and I came up with that,
myślą o tym.
I got to say, so we have that. So there will be information about what jobs are required, and schools will adapt in their curricula, right?
To jest nasze klasyczne myślenie.
So that's our classical thinking, how to match the structures.
W Śląsku robi badanie zapotrzebowania.
The local observatory of the labor market in Lower Silesia does research about that,
I dostarczamy
about the requirements for skills in businesses.
Dopasowanie zasobów ludzkich w przedsiębiorstwach.
And classical, adapting or matching human resources in businesses, also very important.
Co druga praca magisterska jest o tym, tak?
The HR courses at universities, every second master's thesis is about that, how to select the new employees, how to onboard them, how to motivate them, how to manage human capital in companies, also about matching one with the other.
Ten ostatni element, dopasowanie pracy,
And last but not least, matching work to the
staje się tematem
predilections and aspirations of an individual. And that is one of the more important, if not the most important topics.
dopasowani w miejscu
So we have to feel
czujesz się dobrze w tym miejscu pracy,
that
to zmienić.
we feel good in a workplace, that we are well matched with our workplace.
Zadanie, tak?
So feeling good in your workplace is your task. You need to be satisfied. If you are not satisfied, well, change something about it. We have opportunities now. We have 4% unemployment. and Eurostat says 2%.
2% bezrobocia w Polsce. Teraz ta zwyżka bezrobocia...
So now the increased unemployment rate prognosed in Poland is a result of unfortunate changes in legislation, which says that you cannot register out, cross out a person from the unemployed list, unemployment sector. It was 3 months previously. Now, even if a person says, no, I don't want any longer, they still have to be registered as unemployed for 3 years. Therefore, there's the blurred data about the unemployment rate. But coming back to the individual adjustment of a person for a job and the other way around, the school is expected to prepare a person to be able to ask questions to themselves, does this job suit me? Does this job really help me self-realize? Well, there is a myth about Z generation, but some of them is true, and it is our task to face this issue. Today, education is multi-phased. When you speak education, we think school, but there is also more to them. It's a training, special courses, self-education, education in a workplace, education in social relations. So it's even more. It's also education within the family. And formal education becomes now the object of observation of politicians, qualification specialists, and so on. And we now are translating it into the formal and real training about education. This is obvious that we have to face it, and these global trends and the task of adjustment can be translated into educalization, which is the key part of social life. I believe, and I've believed it for years, that educational policy is the key policy in the management of society. Whenever we move, health issues, sport, economy, business, we always end up with the question about training and adjustment of competence, education to the needs. Education is the most important thing, is the axis of the whole social and economic system for these 3 laws of which I mentioned at the beginning. And this educalization can be associated with medicalization to show you how important medical issues are important in social life. Medical issues are now being defined in medical categories. This is an illness, and we can cure it, as medicine proposes. You've got depression, take a pill. Same can be translated. You feel bad in social relationships, go to the specialist, take a pill. So previously, we educated our educational issues through prism of other fields. Now, we are facing them, addressing them, and all other social issues through the prism of education. Unemployment, it means that people had bad education. What can we do? Retrain them. Offer them better training. So this educalization issue has several layers. It's both private life and public life. In public life, it's the relationship, the state economy in schools. It sounds bad to our individualists because the educational system in Poland is not for us, it's for the Polish economy, it's for the Polish state. It's not the fact that the half of the Polish budget is just to make us live happily. This is a classical sociological perspective. Don't be naive, optimists, telling us that education is maximize your human development, like after Rousseau, that it's for your inner development and happiness. Now, the slogan is education is to prepare an individual able to live in a society in which the individual is able to merge with the system smoothly, and their appearance doesn't break the system, but helps to continue and develop the system. This is classical sociological thinking, but I believe there is something to it. It's not that Prime Minister Tusk and the financial minister try to invent new developments, because they think in systematic terms, in terms of a system. Before somebody becomes a Minister of Education, they already know what changes to implement, because they've got children. But when they become ministers, they face difficulties saying, oh dear, it's not that simple. My saying is, when I have power, I will change everything. But when I get the power, then I am stalled. I am blocked by the forest of regulations, legislations, and various levels of education. And Jesus, it's not that simple. I cannot make everybody happy by my actions. And then I just run from pillar to post, sorry, ministers, saying things like that. But I just want to show you that it's a really complex issue. Remember, education is a public good as well as private, and each part should profit from it, because I learned a lot just to be able to deliver this speech to you today. I managed to follow such a path in my life that I found myself in this role, and I hope and I want my son to be so educated that he also finds a good role for himself. My advice to him is, do whatever you wish, be happy. And he tells me, don't tell me what I am to do. And I tell him, okay, do whatever you wish, you consider good. And that's our conversation. Every parent has a dilemma. We should be committed to development of our children, but parents are not committed to the public good, but they are committed to the good of their children. And there is some ambivalence. Society, parents, education. The state needs more and more well-educated citizens. The philosophy of human capital from 1960s says the better education of society, the better economic result. And we believe that if we are better education, our life, if you are better educated, we will have better lives. This is a kind of self-propelling issue. Previously, in previous epochs, education was for the elite. The education in the shape in which we know began at the turn of the 19th century. Previously, it was for the elite. The son of Lord Stark was supposed to become the Lord, so his training was that necessary for the Lord. He learned to read, to dance, he attended ballrooms to learn dancing. He learned about the calls of each nobility. He was supposed to be wise in the elite system of that epoch. Whether he was stupid or wise, he was predestined to be the king, and the elite was prepared to be in elite position. And that was underlined by the belief that education is development of wisdom. But education is not for produce better, to sow better. At that time, that was not the model of education. This approach for being better skilled only became at the beginning of the 20th century, when education became popular. Well, my time is up and I'm only halfway through. Okay.
A dzisiaj myślimy o tym,
And today we think that
nie mamy być
the
mądrzy,
educational framework doesn't suppose us to be wiser. I know it sounds weird,
umiejętność,
but
efekt
the
bycia
skill
to, że ja potrafię coś zrobić,
we had thanks to our being at school,
ważne.
the skill of being useful for the society, which then is translated into other elements of education. Formal education becomes important element of our education. We all believe we need longer education, better education. We know that school gives only preliminary stage of education. This is only the basic competence, but we are supposed to be learning for the whole of life. Lifelong learning is no longer a slogan. It's now the reality and the necessity.
Uczenia się.
So our task is to motivate people to educate, self-educate, to develop an informal education and transform informal education into occasional. Because we were gaining these skills previously, but nobody had it organized or systematized. Because hadn't people learned throughout the history of mankind, we would have died. We would have been eaten by tigers, mammals, or whatever. And now look at our place. In the European Union, we see how important are the skills gained thanks to informal education. So even the parents are motivated to still continue learning. Even by Facebook, the parents have to have a look and see the ranking of schools for their children. What is important? This is wanted to. Okay, let me skip the issue. So, as a result of this thinking, we've got the vocalization of the academic education. It has been so for about 20 years. All the students have complained that there is too much theory at their academic education because there is too much theory compared to practical skills. Because they say they don't need reading much theory, much about philosophers, because they study to gain certain professional skills, to give me concrete, tangible abilities, after gaining of which I'll be earn such and such money. The model of education now is being transformed. It's not teacher pupil, but now I am a person offering educational services, and I must be prepared to meet the needs of my customers. And the last thing, micro, and this is confirmed on the micro level. So first we need the general education on the secondary level. Again, pupils ask, why do I need to know so many details about the microorganisms in biology, amoebas, and so on? And I reply, to make you be able to make analysis. In biology lesson, you use the language of biological analysis. In chemistry lessons, chemical analysis. Whatever field it is, you will be able, when you start working, to perform analysis. Of course, when children ask, what is the knowledge about amoebas for, you need to give them the answer, to show them that they need such knowledge at skill developing basis. So that is the idea. But really, when we look at our educational system, we can see that the old way of thinking is still present. So how come a pupil cannot attend classes and pass the exam or validate their qualifications? We had a discussion about micro proofs. Can you get a diploma without spending several prescribed number of hours in at a school desk?
No i to wszystko nas
It's difficult for some people to understand that now it's different.
o tym, że dorosłe zawodowe
Professional advisory services become the axis of the system. Education is the key social policy. Advising services are the key axis of the educational services. And this is tackled by law, by legislation. So now we can see that we change from the classical understanding of profession. Now we've got life design and life guidance instead of old-fashioned issues. So this is the new idea. Life guidance, professional guidance. There are new tasks for those who want to support people in their transfer from education and labor market and their professional skills. And we've got a lot of talks, integrated system of qualifications, register of qualifications, branch centers of skills, sector councils for competence, individual development accounts. So there's the integrated strategy of skills. So we have it. We've got the framework, what the professor told us. European Union is pushing us to implement certain solutions. And we've got the philosophy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. My outline is a bit too long. But let me sum up. Please have your, inverted commas, homework. The old system has not yet disappeared. Professors, academic professors still think in an old-fashioned way. They don't apply interchangeable, flexible thinking. And of course, school is to provide wisdom. Certainly, you must be generally educated in the fields of literature, history of literature, to be aware of your background, of your identity, social, cultural identity, and so on. This is important. It's not that it's rubbish. No, the new education is not to forget it and to be subordinated to the new flexibility. But there is also the need on various levels. Individual, social, national. The pandemics showed us that school is not for teaching anybody or learning something. The school is to take care of kids, to make them develop social relationships. It's more than just competence in the field of mathematics, biology, or whatever. And when we think of this in business terms, so even kindergarten develop soft social powers, which is the basis, the background for all kind of cooperation. All kind of education, formal or informal, is professional because it's subordinated to the labor market. Thank you very much.
Dziękujemy panie profesorze.
Thank you, Professor. It was Professor Piotr Mikiewicz, Lower Silesia University. Will you be available, Professor, if there are any questions, maybe in the foyer? Where can we find you? Yeah, I'll be around here. Professor is available. I heard from the noises from the hall that there are going to be some questions. And now new people.
I rynku pracy. Obie panie reprezentują Fundację Rozwoju Systemu Edukacji. Zapraszam i brawa dla naszych prelegentek.
Dzień dobry, miło Was Państwa bardzo gościć. Ja nazywam się Julia Rozbicka, poprowadzę pierwszą z części naszej wspólnej prezentacji z Olą I myślę, że wyjdę od takiego założenia, które
Okay, hello everybody. Let me start with the premises, which is not new, but the time we live is the time of transformation of anything possible. It's not only in the business, economic, but also our individual life, learning system, teaching system, communication, and of course, labor market. Ladies and gentlemen, the labor market today is not what it used to be
i określany mianem rynka pracownika
years ago,
pracodawcy, przepraszam.
which we called as the labor market of the employer or employee. Now, hard data says 60% of organizations find it difficult to find new employees with competence, with skills they need. The market of adjustment is the market of where the skills meet the demands. 60% of employers indicate the need for good skill-demand relationship, and still they are missing it. They need better trained employers. So the competence, the education, what really people can do is more important than the diploma they can show off. Of course, diplomas are important, but skills are the most important. The situation is being constantly monitored by various agencies, for instance, CD4. The reports tell us that transformation and digitalization needs a constant updating of skills. And the main barrier for growth is the ICT, technical sector, and health services sectors. And what has been heard for years, education cannot follow the development of technology. One of the answers is the new strategy Union of Skills, whose goal is the development of stronger and more flexible, better educational systems in Europe, developing more mobility and the ability to draw talented people from outside the European Union. And let me tell more that at the current labor market, employers emphasize skills first, adjustment of skills first. And this basically changes our situation, not only as people seeking employment, but also people who help others find employment and help young people develop consciously their development, professional development. Previously, the frequent question was, what is your education or what diploma do you have? Now it's transformed, it's evolved into the question, how your competence can contribute to the success of our company. So actually, some people are pushing away the model of diploma-based employment towards the skill, competence-based employment. So the emphasis is priority of competence, which replaces diploma-based selection of recruitment, which take place in many companies. And companies often say this. For them, they need people with skills, with suitable skills for their needs of each company. So what can we do now? What can we say when companies ask about your experience? Young people searching employment or who want to change their job, they can often feel, I am not sure whether this job suits me, I'm not sure whether they've got enough experience, enough competence. And very often when I talk to young people, usually students, there's also the same kind of doubt. Well, I'm not sure because I've never done a thing like that. I've never worked professionally. I've never done anything concrete. What shall I do?
I drodzy Państwo,
Well,
jakby taką
ladies and gentlemen,
puentą jest tego,
my
chodzi o to,
point
że
to this is
brakuje, bo nam
it's not that we need anything. We don't need anything. We are not missing anything. What is the key is the development of certain awareness of young people that their whole life they are working for their professional competence. They are accruing their skills throughout their whole lives, and we must make them realize that, for instance, making some voluntary jobs or joining some science circles, internships, participation in special extra hobbies, scientific hobbies, all of this is the competence which can be used in their professional career. How can you do it? There's an issue that it's not only the people who search for jobs face such jobs, though are not able to grasp and formulate their competence. And very often people who cooperate with them are not able to localize, to define their competence. And here we've got the Europass tool, which is the digital platform which helps you to make your CV, motivation letter, and the total digital profile in more than 3,000 languages, and it's acknowledged not only in Poland but all over Europe. And this tool helps young people translate their competence into the language understandable by their employees, potential employees all over Europe. So this is the tool, but we also need some navigation. We know that we've got a tool to formalize our skills, but how can we start? And there is Euro Guidance, which is the program for professional advisors and all people who work with young people and want to help them develop their professional skill.
Darmowe webinaria, szkolenia, konferencje, seminaria, tak jak dzisiaj się tutaj.
So we've got seminars, webinars, meetings like today. Our ambassadors often.
Trzeci rok program ambasadorski, który prowadzą praktycy rynku pracy w takich newralgicznych punktach.
Our guides work in the.
Powiedziałabym kolokwialnie topowych.
They work in top fields. They are expert on recruitment, on market development of the special brand, expert in sustained development, and also people who help sharing good experience. For instance, a competition which we have the third edition of the Euro Guidance competition.
Teraz ja opowiem Państwu kilka słów na temat działalności.
A few words about the national team of experts for professional training and
od 5 lat i
experts, Euro Guidance.
Zawodowej. Na początek, kim są eksperci EWET? Jest to grupa.
Who are EWET experts? There is a team of specialists appointed by Ministry of Education and Higher Education who work to make the education flexible, open to the world and modern. We've got specialists in various fields, professional trainers, career advisors, specialists for qualifications, specialists for education and labor market. Professor told us about the educationalization of the market, and the expert also also deal with short-term education courses and means of self-education, and this helps us to work in the field of medium and higher education and meet your requirements. The main goal of EVAD team is support the development of good quality training, professional and vocational skills, and supporting the ability to learn throughout the whole life. We help Erasmus beneficiaries in terms of international cooperation, and our experts also support national teams devoted to labor market. And there are several means in which EVAD supports education. We concentrate on mobility because this is the key of practical learning of skill. We increase teacher competence. I will show you what are these, what are methods. Career education, career advisory, cooperation with business. We promote Skill Poland initiative, and also the framework and system for qualification. We are present in local and regional meetings, seminars, as well as national conferences promoting education in Erasmus+. We, from time to time, in certain cycles, we cooperate with Europass and Euroguidance. We address various kinds of addressees, including teachers, pupils, students, and career advisors. We also expand our offer by webinars, so please have a look at it. This is the outline of issues, good assessment, methods of learning, of application of TIK, and so on. I know that many of you realize programs in Erasmus programs or think about it, and our experts are prepared to help you starting from the planning project up to the final stage of realization and implementation of the results you achieved. So please consult our information materials, and please welcome to meetings we organize as well as individual contacts, because we believe that individual support is the best method of supporting people. The result of our expert activities is also many publications, articles. We've got 4 publications which you can buy even today at the stands which are here in the hall. We can talk about
So we are working with Euroguidance and Europass with our experts about mentoring and tutoring, etc. So you can find out about the work of the experts at this website, and that's where you will find the current information about education and forthcoming training meetings, the content materials, and information about the members of the team. And now, a little bit about training and cooperation activities, and that is a campaign that is a co-organizer of the Vocational Education Forum here. And I think that this offering is very important, because this allows teachers, head teachers, careers advisors, various practitioners who work with vocational education, and the organizers of mobility to take part in interesting training sessions, international conferences, study visits, various forums, etc. And here it's important to mention that in many cases this participation is completely free of charge, and the national agency covers the cost of travel to the place where the meeting takes place. So you're welcome to look at the offering published on the Erasmus Plus website.
Na zakończenie
And
pozostawiamy
to conclude,
namiary
you can see here the contact details for the EVET team and Europass National Center. You are welcome to contact us by email.
Dziękuję bardzo.
And thank you very much for your attention, and thank you as well.
Dziękujemy serdecznie. To były panie Julia Rozbicka i Aleksandra Bauchan, reprezentujące...
Thank you so much. Julia Rozbicka and Alexandra,
Szanowni Państwo, żeby Państwo mieli...
who represent the Foundation for the Development of the Education System.
Powiedziane, porozmawiać, powymieniać się informacjami. Proponujemy teraz
So
przerwę kawową.
now we suggest that we take a coffee break until 12:15. So please come back here on time because of the agenda. We still have workshops and debate, so please join us here at 12:15. Please don't worry, there is also time to visit the Skills Poland area, and there will be time for that tomorrow. So please join us here at 12:15 for a debate. Thank you.
Miło mi powitać Państwa po przerwie.
Welcome after the break.
Trwa 5.
Please remind me that it's the 5th Vocational Education Forum underway, and we are meeting under the motto "From Learning to the Labour Market, a New Era of Vocational Education." And it's time for a debate. Innovation, vocational, industry-specific and higher education for the labour market. Katarzyna Olszewska, PhD, a EVET expert, Academy of Applied Sciences in Elbląg, is the moderator. Please join me here on the stage. And our panelists. And please join me here. Katarzyna Tulkis-Błesnowska, Deputy Director of the Vocational Education Office for Young People and the European Solidarity Corps from the Foundation for the Development of the Education System.
Katarzyna Ćwiąkała,
EVET expert, Powiat Brzesk Education Center, Bochnia, School Complex number 2.
Pani Karolina
Nawrocka, Mucha Invest in Pomerania.
I pan dr
Jarosław Domalewski, PhD, Nicolaus Copernicus University, Toruń.
Zapraszam na debatę.
And now it's time for a debate. Hello everyone. So much is being said about vocational education here today, and I think it's a good idea to consider innovation in education. Our debate has this title, it's already been introduced. It's about innovation in education at various levels. You have been introduced to the panelists as well, and I would like to ask every panelist to give a brief characteristic of what they do, and in fact, from the point of view of the sectors that we are going to be addressing here. So the aim is to answer the question that will allow us to define innovation in education and how to prepare young people to be in the right place in the job market. So, for innovation and from the academic and systemic solution, we would like to hear from Jarosław Domalewski, PhD. Please tell us what you do, and then we are going to move on to more specific questions. And I think that based on this debate, we should be asking them. Thank you very much. I represent Nicolaus Copernicus University in Toruń, Faculty of Research on Science and Higher Education. And my area of interest is, well, I've gone through the whole educational path because I started my work by dealing with preschool education and general schooling, then going through the internal differentiation of secondary schooling. And in recent years, at last, I think I matured enough to be able to deal with higher education. My presence here is closely related to a project that we have almost completed, and the wrap-up conference was held last Thursday and Friday in Toruń, and it was dedicated to public vocational schools, higher education, so those schools that carry out vocational education. And this is a sector that is not big, about 5% of all of students, 50,000 students at this point. It was 100,000 in its peak, but it's a sector that is specific because of how it is positioned geographically. It operates outside of large urban areas in educational deserts, where literally there is basically no other way to get any higher education. That's why there's this special role in the regional or sub-regional dimension that is played by those vocational schools of the Applied Sciences Academy. Thank you very much. Katarzyna Tulkies-Włosnowska, over to you, ma'am.
Dzień dobry Państwu.
Hi everyone, hi again. My name is Katarzyna Tulkies-Włosnowska. I am Deputy Director of the Vocational Education Programs Bureau at the Foundation for the Development of the Education System. And currently, I work with 4 teams. I oversee their work. 2 of those teams coordinate the implementation of Erasmus Plus in education, vocational education and training sector. That's mobility team for Action 1, and partner projects, that's Action 2. In my office structure, there is also a team, that's Europass team, the National Center of Europe Guidance, and EVET experts. And I also coordinate a very large team that implements projects for vocational education and mobility that are funded under the first program. My whole career, basically, on various levels and from various sides, has been related to Erasmus Plus and with vocational training and education. And I am, in fact, a graduate of neolinguistics, Polish, the Polish language. But it's when I was graduating, there was our referendum in Poland on Poland's accession to the EU, and that's how it started. So I never worked really in my background profession. I just started working with EU funds. Very, very quickly, I started working with Erasmus Plus in the very area of vocational education and training. So that's VET, and I've been working with the Foundation for the Development of the Education System for several years. I had a short hiatus working there, but then I got to know Erasmus from a completely different side. As a coordinator for Erasmus at university, I was also an expert for Erasmus Plus for the foundation. I was implementing projects, Erasmus projects, myself, and not just for Erasmus, in fact. So I can say that I really do know a little bit about Erasmus and VET, and I'm very happy to be able to be here with you today. Thank you so much, ma'am. And now, Katarzyna Ćwiąkała, over to you, please.
Dzień dobry Państwu.
Ma'am, hi everyone.
Może zacznę od tego.
Let me perhaps start that I am an expert of the national team for vocational education and training, that's EVET, and I'm also a teaching advisor for vocational training for technical school teachers and sector-specific schools at the Education Center in Brzesk. And on a daily basis, I'm a teacher of vocational topics in a Geological Survey Technical School in Bochnia. I also work with the examination board in Krakow as an author, as a reviewer of examination materials, and also as an examiner for vocational exams. I'm also a trainer to support schools in developing learning skills by learning by experimenting, by an activating method, and I think this is my strongest suit. In terms of my career, I am highly interested in a topic that was already mentioned today in the previous speeches, so lifelong learning. It's very close to my heart, both in terms of young people and adults. And to prove that, let me say that I'm also learning myself at this point.
Uczę się
And
narzędzi
I'm
związanych
learning various tools
mentoringiem,
in coaching, mentoring, and tutoring in
jako
education
właśnie zindywidualizowanej i spersonalizowanej.
as a kind of individualized and personalized and innovative way to support both students and teachers and also head teachers
Właśnie w rozwoju edukacji zawodowej.
in developing vocational education. And I think that I have this pleasure to look at vocational education from various perspectives.
Nauczyciel, no to
As a teacher,
przede wszystkim moim uczniom na co dzień.
so I'm with my students on a daily basis and I watch them discover career paths. As a teaching advisor for teachers, and I support them in developing their teaching practice, their methods. And let me also mention, maybe a little bit on the private side, that I am the mom of 3 children who are in schooling. So this is the most important role for me, the role of a parent. And I can see very strongly how much young people need today, not just knowledge and skills and vocational skills, but they just need the sense of purpose. And the point, they need to know that it is meaningful to have education, and they need space to be themselves. That's why I am optimistic. I believe in education that brings people together rather than divide them, and gives opportunities to young people. Thank you so much. And Karolina Nawrocka-Mucha. Ma'am, please tell us a few words about yourself. Karolina Nawrocka-Mucha here. I represent an EU project under the European funds in Invest in Pomerania. I work in the talent attraction team. On a daily basis, I'm in charge of relationships between the universities and business, and I don't make a division here into vocational universities or vocational school, higher schools or general schools of higher education. We work with all of them across the entire region of Pomorskie, and I bring together these two worlds. We have projects that we do together. I encourage them to work together, to have PhDs, and also to co-organize events that we can organize together with business. Because what it's about is for students and also teachers, so students and also students of universities and students of technical schools to find work. We are in charge of co-creating such a tool. That's the Pomeranian Bank of Talents, and employers can look for job candidates with specific qualifications. And I'm an interesting example because I'm an archaeologist by background and also an expert in Slavic languages. That's not so frequent. But I use a lot of what I learned at university to work with business. So these paths can be different, but we need to be flexible. So flexibility in education. And you're more than welcome to listen to what we have to say. Like you heard, ladies and gentlemen, various areas, various types of education, vocational, industry-specific, and higher education. But, we get trained in our vocations from the kindergarten. And the first question is about being innovative. And we need to answer that question. How do we understand innovation in education from so many different perspectives, from so many different levels? What is our view of that as experts in various areas? Jarosław, could you please tell us your viewpoint from the point of view of sociology, how it works, the way you understand it, and then we'll move on. Thank you so much. Yes, I did spend some time on reflecting and considering how we could understand innovation here if we looked at it from the teaching perspective. Every idea implementation is innovative if it's intentional and if it's there to achieve some goals or improve efficiency. For teaching pedagogy. And I think that we could transpose this definition onto vocational training too. So I wouldn't by any means bring it down, bring innovation down to any specific area. It's a complex of actions, a whole set of actions in various areas. Teaching quality, teaching content, the way the curricula are structured, but also in the way the work is organized in educational institutions. In a broad sense, so for vocational training, in such a way that these curricula are as fitting to the demand as possible. Because that is the specific nature of vocational education. It has to meet the needs of its environment, the social and economic environment. And we heard this word that it seems to me to be the key. And I think it's going to be repeated during our debate. And that's flexibility. Flexibility that is a buzzword. When we consider innovation in vocational training and education. Right. So innovation from the point of view of the quality of education, how curricula are built. I think we could look at international projects. Now, what does innovation look like from that point of view? So projects, program, international contacts. I understand that it's a question to me, right? Yes, of course, Erasmus Plus, because that's what we are going to focus on today, and all the other initiatives that surround Erasmus in the VET area, but they support innovation on various levels, several levels. That's mobility, most of all. So international mobility for both students and teachers, and that allows them to observe innovation in technology, in teaching, in organizing, which in Polish schools perhaps are not available. Of course, a lot has changed in vocational education in Poland, and it keeps changing. But we have been observing that project participants come back from those international study tours with new solutions, new ideas and methods that they are then able to apply in their work, in their career, after they graduate or in the work as a teacher.
Another level are the project of the BAS department in International Strategic Partnership for Innovation. And in this place, organizations create some solutions related to VR model technologies like VR, cyber safety, security. They create various types of new platforms for e-learning, which meet the demand, current demand on the labor market. So we can say that from this angle, the Erasmus program is the engine of innovative solutions, which then can be scaled or applied on the in the European perspective. Of course, if the finances were higher, the outcome and the span will be greater. The program supports the professionalization of the top staff by, for instance, facilitating them to have internships, professional vocational internships in foreign centers, in foreign industry. So again, we're coming back to labor environment, which, considering the technological aspect or innovative aspect, might not be so high and available in Poland. So here, the program addresses the fact that without professional trainers, teachers in specific trades, without technique currently and solution currently applied in particular branches, the professional training and education will not reach demanded level. May I add something, please? Okay. I would like to add that, first, I agree with you 100%. We, as Parent Action, have returned from our visit to Italy, and it was not without a reason that we went to Italy, because we had a study visit in Milan to see how do Italians manage to have so well-developed education, vocational and training and education. Because first, they have special technical schools. Later on, the second degree goes attention goes to general schools with some trade bias, and then other kinds of schools. And here the situation is different in Poland, depending on the region of Poland. So we spent 4 days, subsequently we spent 4 days in Verona. There we were at the biggest tray of work and job orientation. There were 80,000 participants during these 4 days. And you know that teachers first came to us with their students from technical vocational schools, asking about what kind of profile of vocational training you have, what schools do you have in Poland. So they were all the so-called technical secondary schools, and there's only one general secondary school with technological bias. And they were astonished that the balance in Poland is different than that in Italy. And for us, being representatives of employers who emphasize that developing self-awareness of young people guarantees aware and good development of career. What was also interesting in this context, we tried to attract talents in the Pomeranian area. We know what the level of education we have in vocational terms. We've got more about 90,000 students, while Milan has more than 200,000, and 70,000 of them are foreigners who come to study in Italy, in Milan. And it's only Milan, while I am speaking about the whole Pomeranian area. So the key question was how they manage, the Italians, to achieve it. Answer is the Erasmus program. We have it in Poland, but we need much more of them to encourage our students, our pupils, to take up courses, foreign courses for development and technical training. So we've got a quite good image of all the available programs for schools on the secondary and academic level. All these educational institutions have an opportunity, a chance to use these programs. But what does it look from the vocational training, vocational schools? Do you think, dear ma'am, that this openness, the offer, corresponds to the use of these opportunities?
A więc tak. Gdyby pewnie zapytać mnie 2 lata temu, co to
If you ask me 2 years ago what innovation in technical and professional industry-oriented training is, I would talk about AI or new software or new hardware. Of course, this is an up-to-date answer and very important issue, but when you ask me the question today, the being innovative in vocational training first means changing of the philosophy of learning and teaching. So all these things which you have already mentioned, ladies and gentlemen. Let me explain. We should depart from the school as a place which carries out the basic educational syllabus, and we should replace it towards the school, which is the space open for student or pupils' development, which facilitates not only hard competences, which mean professional competences, but also encourages students to develop this whole spectrum of competence, cognitive competence, social competence, and personal. And all of this, I think, permits our students, our pupils, to successfully operate within various fields, both at school as well as in their future jobs, as well in social life. One of you said that it's difficult to find an area in which innovative approach can be noticed here. Well, I think we can see it, but from my perspective, let me enumerate a few where the flame of innovation is the biggest. Bright Strengths BCU centers, which are laboratories for the future in the context of innovative approach, which is a very interesting area. Previously, somebody mentioned in their speech that the modern vocational training should prepare everyone to learn throughout their whole life, among other things, in upskilling. And these centers are the perfect area for the improvement of your vocational skills. Another area which comes to my mind, and I think you won't be astonished, this is the Skills Poland Euroskills Work Skills competitions, which are a big source of inspiration and motivation for young people. And our today's Jubilee 5th Forum of Trade and Professional Education accompanies the biggest event in the field of education, with branch education, professional education, and industry-oriented education. The students downstairs, and they compete on the students. Among them is one of my pupils. They compete in various interactive skill competitions. So this is a big source of innovation as well. And another thing, the change in philosophy of learning and teaching. And here I see it as the redefinition of the teacher's role. A teacher is not a person who now transmits knowledge to their pupils or in a technical school or vocational school, but the teacher now becomes more of a tutor, a guide who helps their students to develop professionally and develop individually. So even if I mentioned a few fields, I am for evolution, not for revolution, and the Pareto rule is my rule, because 20% of our activities suited to our reality, suited to the background which every school has, generates 80% of results. And this facilitates change. Another voice, I absolutely agree. But if you have a look at this issue from different levels, organization of learning, a teacher who should now have also a different role, programs skills, syllabus, possibilities of become international in vocational and academic training. And we also spoke about some competitive blank spaces. Some research shows there are missing points, blank points in various fields. So, Mr. Doctor, do you believe that professional education first pertains to technologies, methodology, or maybe some other ways? Can you see, how do you see from the point of research which you have made? As I said, our research concentrated on higher education in the field of particular trades and professions. And if we are going to search for the areas in which innovative approach appears at academic level, so I would first indicate the process of the educational offer. How do you shape this offer? And this is the most important factor, considering the function of why academic education exists. And there we can look for symptoms of innovation, but to my knowledge, are not so present on different levels of education. They are on academic level, but different levels are poorly developed in this area. First, academic education has strongly evolved for the last 20 years. 20 years ago, they were first, now they train in professional practical training, not academic training. 20 years ago, these were academic institutions oriented on arts, humanities, and social sciences. Later, a shift came, and the bias was for engineering and technology. And recently, we have observed the medicalization of academic institutions. So the teaching offer or studying offer is shaped on the basis of the needs, plans, and aspirations of students. And this is the first level on which academic institutions try to recognize the market, because they operate in a specific, generally speaking, specific area. So they try to recognize the market. Later, they prepare the teaching offer, which must be accepted by the Polish Accreditation Commission. And as for the methods of preparing the studying method or teaching method, it was quite astonishing, because basically every academic institution, every institute, every faculty has the stakeholders, councils or business councils, who represent the social business environment of each academic institution. They are differently called in different academic institutions. And these bodies actively shape syllabuses, but certainly the basic responsibility is on the academic institution itself. But very often, as some rectors mentioned, especially if there are these councils are very active, very often the outcome is the refashioning of the whole philosophy of the educational of a given institution and change of the syllabus. For instance, there was an academic institution for penitentiary sciences dealing with criminal codes, prisons, and they were oriented for safety. And finally, people realized that the hours devoted for training for each particular skill absolutely missed the needs of the environment. So they quickly refashioned it. Another example, one of the academic institutions planned to launch a new faculty, employed new teachers. That was the Faculty for Engineering and Technological Sciences. They prepared some laboratories. They even planned what kind of equipment they should buy to equip their laboratories. But again, representatives of business totally refashioned the initial plans, because they indicated certain elements in these planned laboratories which had nothing to do with the real needs of the market, of business. The same can be said about public institutions. Another example, if I may use these examples, but they really illustrate the trends. There was a local hospital and the director of the physiotherapy planned to develop this branch. He took responsibility for the development of this ward, but then the self-government should be applied, because initiatives as for launching a certain field of training should be launched at all, because very often self-governments who have their academic institution in their area. I'm mostly speaking about small towns, about 100 inhabitants of something like between 20 to 100,000 inhabitants. But for their self-governments, such academic institutions offer certain potential for finding external investor. So already at the stage of negotiating certain institutions from the part of big business, representative of academic institutions participate, because they indicate that in case of a positive decision of an investor, the employment of the consultation of business might provide well-trained, well-skilled graduates of a given academic institution. So this is the most innovative area in the field of professional academic training in public areas, where the links between social area, business area, and educational area, and the academic institution offer, the links are very strong. Not to mention such obvious things like infrastructure. Permit just me one remark, that there are laboratories equipped on the level of technological advancement. So there are centers of medical simulation or court simulation, like trial processes where the reconstruction of the whole courtroom is reconstructed and students can practice. So the students can train their professional skills. And these smaller academic institutions not only can compete with big centers, but very often they are even better centers than those from big cities. Let me take one more area which may not be treated innovative as such, but they seem important to me from the perspective of meeting the requirements of society and economy. and how attractive the offer of these educational institutions, academic institutions, is for the students. It's difficult to call it innovation as such, but there is a certain solution, and I observed in these institutions, these academic institutions, is the process of directing the organization of training of students with taking into account the needs of their students. They are a normal, follow formal normal course as in every academic institution, Monday to Friday. But there are also academic courses, which have the which have a free of charge offer, which is important in small towns. They are hybrid types of education, which is part immoral, plus some weekend studies and some evening courses online. Why? Because the students are often working people, and they just improve their qualifications, their skills. And they cannot spend the whole day from Monday to Friday, and they have joined their education with professional and family requirements.
So the offering for them is special, the special form of how the classes are organized, and that is tailor-made for them. In other courses, classes have to conclude at 4 p.m., right? That's agriculture, because of the obligations and duties these students have. They have to do some jobs on the farm. So the classes can't take longer than that. So again, coming back to what was mentioned before, and what I already mentioned several times, so these universities display a remarkable flexibility towards the environment where they operate, and can be defined in a meaning of certain innovation. So innovation as an offering that covers technologies, equipment, infrastructure, the staff, the skills, the qualifications, how work is organized. But this innovation is also visible in another area, and that is to include the needs of the education clients. Forgive the phrasing, but they are the beneficiaries of vocational education. So these two sides of innovation are present here. So that's more or less it from me. Right. Yes, great listening from the point of view of higher education, because we have this freedom and flexibility is innovation is possible to introduce. But this education will look different on the primary and secondary school level, because there is no freedom there like that to mix and match, to get closer to the market, because there's the curriculum, and that's your limit. And there are jobs that are in need in the area where you work. So I think that from the point of view of primary, secondary schooling and higher education, we are preparing these the staff for teaching, also as a reply to the needs of the labor market. I represent a vocational school of higher education in Elbląg, but I worked at the level of the technical secondary school, and I see differences. So matching to the market is what we do really well, and we do what we can. At universities, we have this opportunity to get really adapted to the users' needs, potential clients, and also to what our students expect. Carolina, from the point of view of business, what does it look like? The graduate who goes into the labor market, regardless of the level, be it the higher vocational education or general higher institution or vocational school that is for graduates of secondary schools. And is this person going to have the skills required by the labor market? Yes, this question it really covers our entire debate. And I won't talk for very long about that, just several sentences referring to Ms. Jarosław has said, because we deal with investor visits as Invest in Pomerania. So investors come to visit us. Let me describe the process. And they think about the region of Pomorskie as one possible location for their business. Different size companies, micro companies, huge multinationals such as Bayer, Amazon or Intel. And we help them choose. And one of the most important questions is, well, yeah, okay, but do we have people we can employ here? And that, of course, involves the money, the funding that is obtained. And we always have a presentation about the general education opportunities in Pomorskie. We have 90,000 students, we have vocational schools, we have sector-specific schools. They are not familiar with our educational schools. They have a technical school, a general secondary school, maybe a sector-specific school. We have a bachelor's degree, master's degree, postgraduates. They don't care. They want a person to be able to do what they say they can do. So if we talk about our education system, they don't care about the name of the course, if it's electromechanics or if we find a more lofty name for that. What's important is what's included in the curriculum and what skills are described, and for schools of higher education in syllabuses, the competences that you have there, and in vocational schools, for example, what skills that person will have after graduating. So that's what they are the most interested in. And the question whether this person is well adapted to the labor market, going back to my example, it all depends. I think that's the key answer. But flexibility needs to be there most of all. We as an employer want to prepare young people and adults to be able to learn. Because if they learn within a month, half a year or a year, that's a secondary thing. What's important is that they can adapt to dynamically changing labor markets. Yesterday, we launched our project at Invest in Pomerania, and we had a delegation from the World Bank, and they just talked about the changing labor market, if it's AI factories or is it fintech, cleantech or data centers. It's just one huge unknown. We may focus on skills that may be needed in the future, but we shouldn't get attached to those labels, because we live, unfortunately, in rather interesting times when all these norms, all this terminology is changing, and it will keep changing, and our professional duties will be changing as well. I have my job, and it doesn't fit into any form of any described form. I work between universities and business, so someone in charge of working between business and education. So have you heard about such a job position? I'm in between. I'm the go-between. So there will be dramatic changes, and most of all, changes in the skills, professional skills. So we need to prepare young people to be flexible, most of all, so they can use their skills in various areas, in various jobs, in various industries, because that's why we are talking about internationalization, about career inspirations, so that they can use everything that surrounds them, and so that they can focus that in their person, and so that they can use it in their career. So like now, we are building a CV. Doesn't matter where you graduated from. What's important is what skills you put in your CV to be able to find a job. Because employers, first of all, want us to be able to name our skills and competencies. That's important. We need to know what we're good at, how we stand out, and how our skills and competencies can be used by a business to build that business further, to build the sector better. So flexibility by all means. And if I may add something else, motivation, getting motivated, being motivated. We know that privately I work with children and young people in an NGO. And I very often face the lack of motivation to do anything. That's a social issue, and a major one at that. Perhaps we don't have to talk about that, but we need to realize that this exists. And I think that the great advantage we have is that we can teach them motivation. So, so that the person can be self-motivating. That's very difficult, rather than just getting inspiration, motivation from outside, because that is going to change. We need to be flexible in order to be able to live happily. So the question immediately now is, what will be the role of a teacher from the point of view of vocational education? How should a teacher be able to motivate? You know that students have aspirations. Sometimes they have very low motivation. So what can happen in vocational education so that they want? Who should a teacher be to motivate them to learn throughout their lifetime? Because that's what's required, right? Kasia, what about you? Yes, I got a difficult question as well. Karolina, I grabbed the mic, but only to say, to add something to the motivation that's just been described. Because, yes, that's what I heard. And I talk to other students and to my children. And sometimes I just don't feel like doing something. And sometimes I just say, do it today unwillingly. And that motivates them. Yeah, and then I'm just happy that it's been done. So it makes sense, right? That there can be different situations. And Kasia, to answer your question, I mentioned a redefinition of the role of a teacher. To me, it's important as well. Like I said, definitely, I can't see a teacher as a person who will just transmit knowledge one way towards a student in a technical school. But definitely, like I said, this will be someone more. Who is more? And I like this term, that this is a partner. A partner along the way, a guide who helps a student to grow in their career, but also personally, rather than just assess them. And I did mention assessment on purpose, because when I'm thinking about innovation as the topic of our debate, innovation to me is also about having a feedback culture. So this ability to talk at school about the progress of our students, rather than just putting in a grade into the school register. So rather than a teacher being an examiner, like a guillotine that will cut off the fingers if you don't know, shifting towards a person who inspires the students. And tutoring that I mentioned, let me use a metaphor here. So it's like having a trip in the mountains together. My husband is a guide in the Tatra Mountains, so that is deeply embedded in my everyday life. I feel deeply this metaphor. And I know from experience what it means to be mindful in being together with another person on the way to the top. And myself as a teacher, it's not me who chooses this goal, it's the student that does it. Yeah, I am a geoscience expert, and it's easy for me to work with maps, or maybe there can be even digital apps to help. But we need to show various paths, and we need to use our experience to assess what this road will involve and what will be needed along the way. And having this vision, I have very positive emotions. Rather than chaos, we get clarity of the path to follow. Rather than pressure that we oftentimes feel at school, we have the sense of agency. And this lowliness of student is gone. Instead, they get support. And to me, this is immensely important in education. Let me just add that I like what a philosopher or writer has said, from Greece, that the mind is not a meaning that you need to fill, but a fire that you need to spark and make bright. So rather than us teachers pouring some oil for the lamp in students' heads, instead we should be inspiring them to act, to be independent, because that's very important. And let me also add, just remembered, when I mentioned the competitions going on downstairs, to me it's a great way to observe a tutor in a relationship, tutoring a relationship between the teacher and the student. So there is guidance in specific content terms, but there is also general support. There is a plan. And when I look at what's going on downstairs, there are tutoring relationships, and that's how talent is transformed into true skills, and that's magic. So we might conclude that skills are really important, not wisdom, not smarts, but skills. And that's what Carolina mentioned too, that employers are not really fully interested in the job title or the professional career title or the graduation grade that they got, but whether they can do what they put in their CV. So flexibility between various educational paths and between various opportunities in the career sphere. There are also European programs to help along the way. Kasia, a question. Can we even talk about collaboration between vocational schools and universities in creating joint international programs? Of course, it's not just that we can talk about it, we must talk about it. Because by definition, projects and collaboration in a broader sense, partnership under Erasmus+, in vocational education and training, well, they cannot be detached, and they are not detached from the needs of the labor market, which is changing dynamically. And they are a barometer that responds very dynamically to the changing needs. So what we see in our projects is not so much the work between a vocational school and a university, but a partnership, a wider partnership, so between education and industry, where there is a consortium with schools, technical schools, sector-specific schools, universities, higher education, and business, and industry, in broader terms. Without that, without this collaboration, we can't be even thinking about building new and innovative education system or education systems in general. Only such partnership makes it possible to create those courses, curricula, or syllabuses that are based on micro experience, so micro-credentials that are so much in need given the quick pace of change in the labor market and the changing demand. That's what we've been seeing in Erasmus Plus for years now. In fact, this increase is very noticeable, or has been so in recent years. Yes, speaking of micro-credentials, more and more people, more and more employers ask about it.
Tak, bo to już wiele państw już ma, tak? Jakby oni już od lat nad tym funkcjonują.
Very often employers about it. Micro-credentials have already been applied all over Europe, but we here in Poland are still only in the fledgling stage as for this. Some higher education, for instance, Gdańsk Technical University has already implemented it, but many of them still need to do it. So the micro-credentials is really the thing which I hope will develop in the nearest future, not a few years from now, but just a few days from now on, because we need to be able to build expectations, the market expectation based on the micro-credential. Another voice, well, we are not a fully active player on the educational market. We are not able to offer finances to our centers because our financial means are limited, but the micro-credentials issue is the beginning, but I think that this year might be a good launch and for development. This competition, now new competition is open for the deadline next year, and I'm curious how many of the topics will address the issue of micro-credentials. The issue of micro-credentials, acknowledging somebody's competence, skills, works quite well in other countries, but here in Poland, I think that might be the idea to develop such syllabuses which would offer professional and vocational training centered around micro-credentials. We had examples of Czech Republic, Ireland, Iceland, and being innovative in the vocational and industry-oriented training and of skills in this area might well develop on the partnership and cooperation or international collaboration. As for our domestic market, we've got the vocational centers of skills, which might perfectly fit in the cooperation between an academic institution, a vocational school on the one hand, and business on the other hand. Kasia, now you mentioned branch centers for skills. Do you think that these centers might offer support in development of both students, pupils, teachers, as well as the whole society, which should profit from this new approach? Ladies and gentlemen, do you have any knowledge about such center of skills? We plan to have about 120, 130 of such centers. To my knowledge, we've got around 60 of them, so twice as much is expected. So these centers which accrue the cooperation with education, expectation, labor market and business. So we'll have this golden triangle. Okay, we've got some European projects, European schemes, syllabuses related to micro-credentials, but have a look at our own market. How does this help us? Well, as for these centers of the soul, which I called the laboratories of the future, which work fitly in the innovative approach of which we are talking now, these are the places where education meets business, where theory meets practice, which is very important in vocational training, And there are places where pupils, students, as well as teachers, educators, can learn in conditions close to the actual working conditions, which is very important. If students, pupils see that they deal with something real, some real internships, real working in the business area, they can see the sense of their education. Therefore, I find it very important from the motivational point of view and development and instigating and encouraging them. Well, thanks to the fact that BCU are being created, so now vocational schools stop to be isolated islands, but they are now becoming a part of a certain ecosystem with this BCU in the center for a given branch, a given trade, which is absolutely fantastic. We also tackled the issue of flexibility today, and I believe that thanks to these BCUs, this education becomes flexible, and this education is well adjusted to current needs of business. So we can grasp this in such a sentence. It was already in February, a certain county-level BCUs in the town of Brzesko. A new center is being launched in mechatronics, and I have much hope that this place will become the will offer real change of the profit trading trade education. If you want to see how BCU functions in your local area, downstairs you've got the stand, information desk. Our friends from the team dealing with financing the development of BCUs, so please feel invited to go downstairs and check your options. Kasia, you mentioned also internships. Currently, both on the secondary school level or academic education, do these internships really meet the expectations of future employers? Do they prepare the students, a potential employer, for their work in a given phase? Well, being both engaged in business and academic education, yes, I can say it's possible. It depends, because I professionally deal with solving problems, not creating them. So I believe that part of these institutions are able to become good centers for development, preparing future employers and enjoying good internships which meet the requirements of their future employers. But we ourselves must be aware that potential places of internships offer good practice environment, because it's not only the responsibility of this institution, but also this responsibility who sends students for internships. So our responsibility is also a part of the whole thing. We must check whether a potential employer offers some requirements, and whether the school offers the future employer certain schedule of practices. As for this, there are certain detailed requirements to be fulfilled for the internships. As for the academic education, the syllabuses for such internships are very well developed to date. What we need to develop better is the secondary level and even primary level. If we speak about the practical profile of students, it's the area of 6 months for real practice in a given job, and all the public and non-public educational, academic education trainings schools can offer this, and such a student who spent half a year on a given internship is very often given permanent employment, offered a permanent employment. And very often some students, considering the needs for practice, some of the students have to change their regular syllabus into individual syllabus. Let me add one thing. Sometimes the employers make a remark that they can't afford it because it's not profitable for them. And so let me defend schools, because if you want to send a student from a secondary student from a technical school for computer science and you want to send this student for a professionally developed center of digital sciences, so they wouldn't accept the student, because it's the question of safeguards, of safety codes, of all these security requirements. So they might refuse students to have an internship because it's not profitable for such a highly developed digital center. So this issue needs to be solved. Another question, 2 weeks of internships for students will really help the student to develop, because 2 weeks might be too short a period to really go deep into the environment, to learn it deeply. The students will not be able to learn solving problems, to learn some programming or maybe such technical issues like assembling the hardware. Well, but these 2 weeks might be enough to learn certain specific environment. So this might be micro-credential. But on the other hand, I absolutely agree that for business, such short-term internships are not profitable. But the Erasmus Plus has a pass called Erasmus Pro, which facilitates internships abroad from 3 weeks to 1 year, and obviously such internship is not possible for a person on the secondary level, because none of the schools would permit their students to leave the school to go abroad. But anyway, we encourage potential beneficiaries to try to invest in graduates right after they graduate from their secondary school, widely understood professional or vocational school. And we encourage the schools to try to send their graduates to such a long-term practice. What we need, I believe, we need to develop the awareness of both, awareness of the possible options for internships, but it's also for academic level graduates. I graduated, I went from such a training myself. Well, as for the awareness, I think thanks to our information policies, is increasing, but the other question is the will to follow the offer which we present to these institutions. Because very often secondary level student graduates from school, and the school just forgets about the pupil. They don't care about their future vocational training. Who should deal with it? I don't know. Employer? Well, so the European programs and your secondary schools offering various kinds of vocational training should think about this option. It might be difficult to send a secondary school graduate to such an international internship, but you can anyway inform the student about the options and the possible educational paths preparing for such internships. As for academic level, level, on both on BA and MA level, or BSc or MSc level, is not a big offer, but I can tell you about my own daughter. She got a MA degree and she used the option of internship for graduates
Kilkumiesięcznego, prawda?
for 1 month. She went for 3 months, which is a big opportunity for her to develop her skills. And what is most important, to develop her own sense of being important, being valuable. Because we Poles often feel worse, weaker, and if our students go abroad, then they see their own position, their own skill, their own value, and they can see that we are very well educated in many kinds of businesses and trades. As now for academic professional levels from small towns, do they use their potential in vocational training? Maybe they are missing something. Maybe they need something to develop something. Answer. Do they use their potential? That's a difficult question.
Słucham? Zasadniczo rzecz biorąc, odpowiedź byłaby twierdząca.
Basically, the answer would be yes. But possibilities of using their potential partially result from the environment in which they operate. And that's the problem, because their potential is much higher than the expectation of their social and economic environment. So even they've got perfect educators, perfect skills, perfect skill training, fantastic laboratories, there is still the lack of perspectives for the future and the limitations caused by the environment in which they are given graduates, given people who are embedded. What are their expectations? They function in small towns, depopulating environments. In 2060, the number of Poles will be about 26 million people. So the number is decreasing. We are going to meet the demographic Armageddon, especially in some areas of Poland. So public vocational academic schools are functioning, but in 2023 we had 57% less young people aged around 24, which is the potential people who might be recruited as graduates. The perspective of nearest 15 years up to 2040, we as academic institutions will function quite well, but later on we'll meet a disaster. There will be an Armageddon because of demographic issues. It will also influence the labor market. Maybe it might be compensated by artificial intelligence to a degree. Maybe the missing people, the missing labor work on the market might be compensated partially by IE, but it's inevitable that we'll have to activate seniors, re-educate them, and make all people undergo the permanent lifelong education. And to my belief, standards in such environments should be education education free of charge, because for some social groups it's inevitable, it must be free of charge. Various forms of additional training, flexibility development, learning new skills. Unfortunately, this issue is absolutely dead in Poland. We discussed it with Kasia about it. If we happen to implement this issue in our educational syllabuses, plus some finances, to use the potential of these people. Thank you that you tackled the issue, because I am focused on the fifth framework on the Polish level and European level, and in Europe it functions perfectly well. But considering the fact that our young people don't care about anything, they don't feel like doing anything, so within this framework of implementing your professional skills, improving your skills, which for the time being is an offer for academic vocational schools, might become also the offer for the secondary level. This process might take 2 years. Academic institutions which might adjust their educational offer to the needs of the current market and the area in which they operate. And after all, these academic institutions are for the area. They might be able to prepare perfectly prepared graduates. And after that, a young graduate can decide whether they continue their education or not. So this might be an opportunity for development and increasing one's skills. Today, we don't know what jobs will be in demand. We must keep pace with the current situation to adjust our graduates to the expectations of the future employers. One thing which I'd like to tackle about the future.
We know that technology, skills, social, soft skills, the organization of the education process, and making use of different projects, changing the role of a teacher, of an educator, tutor, moderator. These are important things, and I have a request for you. What do you think? Which skills? Because I mentioned all of them. What will be the key in the European labor market in the decade 2030, 2040? That's a bit distant, but perhaps you'd like to consider that. Okay, let me refer to that, and I'll be brief. Of course, I'm sure you're going to mention the technical skills related to state-of-the-art technologies, but I want to focus on social skills. And they are the key to European programs, Erasmus mobility projects, where young people indeed have an opportunity to experience work in the international environment, right? And without social skills, so working with a colleague, being resistant to stress, working with colleagues from another country, being open, and it will be the key, regardless of the sector. And employers, even now, find them very valuable in the marketplace. So cross-sectional kind of skills to be able to work with others, teamwork, communication, being flexible, being open to our colleagues, maybe from a different country, to new cultures, to new ways of behaving. Like I said, this is this huge added value in making Erasmus projects happen. And I think these skills will be the key in 5, 10, and 15 or 20 years.
Przekazujesz mi mikrofon, czyli
So it's my turn, right? You're giving me the mic? Okay, let's do it
No
sequentially.
ja wspomniałam o tych
Yes, I mentioned
zawodowych twardych,
the hard skills,
na początku.
career skills, and I would like to talk about them to begin with, because that's the foundation for everything. That's critical thinking that people talk about a lot. There is no critical thinking if you don't have solid knowledge about it.
Wiadomo, że są różne zawody, różne branże.
Well, you know that there are different industries, different professions, but that's beyond doubt, not subject to discussion. But there are also those cross-cutting skills in the context of the question that you asked. And by that I mean 3 areas. So cognitive skills, that's problem solving, critical and creative thinking. I think that is going to stay valid. There's a social area, and 2 things here close to my heart. I believe that's important. That's collaboration and taking care of others, empathy in a broad sense, and personal skills. So taking care of oneself and directing oneself in the right way. Karolina mentioned motivation, and that's why I'm smiling. So directing yourself, and that is about being independent in your actions and also being persevering. And in terms of critical thinking, I just imagined just a while ago that, like Socrates walking around the marketplace in Athens, asking his colleagues, do you really know what you're talking about? And that is the basis for critical thinking. And just like that, we could imagine another protagonism, Descartes, I think, therefore I am. So these are not just empty slogans. These are the foundations of education that includes the reflection factor. Yes, I agree. From the point of view of people who we look for, if we look for young people to work with, what matters is communication. That's number 1. Without communication, we cannot talk about working together, other empathy-related skills, feeling what others feel. So communication is the number 1 skill that we should be teaching in schools, also in higher education. And number 2, in my view, is foreign languages, even in view of AI, because I would look at it more broadly, not just a hard skill, speaking in a specific language, but understanding in between cultures. For example, a Japanese person will require small talk and a Polish person will not. We are more direct in how we operate. Maybe someone needs to have a break and a Polish person doesn't. So this is not something that you will get from your lessons. This is about understanding cultures. And that is what comes from language skills, because this is what we learn together with the culture. Without learning a culture, you won't learn a language. So linguistic skills, communication and collaboration. Because previously there was this myth that in IT, no, you can just stay in your basement and just write code. No, IT is mainly about team projects and how do you work in a team without the skill of communication, collaboration, right? No, you can't do that. So you can't do it successfully. So these 3 skills, communication, collaboration, and understanding in between cultures, these are the 3 key components.
And here arises another question. What one single change should we introduce to the professional and trade skills, both secondary and academic level? What would you implement which might sum up our discussion? What possibilities can you see? Do you see anything which is worth changing, considering your background, your experience, both national and international, and considering the research has been done and your cooperation with business, what do you think should be, or must be, might be changed? Well, tell me first. Duality, and we all agree. May I? As for the dual education, Carolina was very right about observing the internships and their effectiveness. Well, each internship is as effective as a given institution offering internships permits, and anything in this area, dual education is the same, is as effective as the conditions are created to implement this dual kind of education. Otherwise, it's just abusing our students. Therefore, certain academic institutions give up the idea of dual education, in which vocational training is based on dual education. It has been done like that for years, for instance, in Denmark. But here, our reality is a bit different. But anyway, this system really works well in some cultures. Second thing, I would really invest in micro credentials as an element of long life learning process. Let me concentrate on the first part of the question, what change I would introduce in vocational training. And I must admit, my imagination really works and it bursts with ideas, because I'm from the south of Poland, so when I'm in Gdańsk in the north, so the metaphor of aquarium comes to my mind. So if I were to show one change, I would introduce more sense of responsibility, more sense of cooperation between schools and employers, for instance, in the form of a project realized in real situation, in real environment. Maybe even I would go even further. I would propose to replace part of training vocational examination, to replace this with the real work in a given actual working environment, applying the skills a given student has learned. Because such an approach would enhance the student's skills, his abilities in communication, skills in planning and problem solving. And let me make a reference to what's going downstairs. Skills Poland and the competition shows perfectly, illustrates to students possibilities of organization and the value of their own skills. If this becomes a part of our syllabuses and preparation of our students for such competitions contents, this would be fantastic. Maybe there are some questions from the audience. Is there an issue we would like to tackle? We've got some time, not much, but debate might continue. I've got many more things prepared, but I believe that the answers given by our expert satisfied you, and information which you achieved, which you got, might make you use options offered by our foundation, by our programs and projects, and maybe ideas which appeared in the hands. Any questions from the public, from the audience? Okay. In that case, thank you very much from your outlook, from your skill to look at the issue from different perspectives, and we hope that something appears next year. Thank you very much.
Dziękujemy bardzo.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let me remind you,
Czyli Katarzyna
our guests Katarzyna Turkis-Błoskowska, Katarzyna Ćwiąkała, Katarzyna Nawrocka-Mucha, and Dr. PhD Jarosław Domaszewski and Karolina Olszewska. Thank you very much.
Wymagały przemyślenia.
Of course, we'll have to think it over, speak about this over coffee. Now we've got lunch break until 2:30, and after that we'll have 3 parallel workshop sessions. If you don't remember which group is yours, at the door you've got some information. There'll be information next to the door to each of separate rooms, and their volunteers will help you with the issue. Please note one thing more. Please take your things from here because we are going to a different place. Thank you very much. See you at 2:30.